Welcome to another edition of the Mo Show Live, everybody. Hey, I'm Morris Lillienthal. We're going to be talking about a really important topic today, mental health and mental health awareness. And this is something that I really think is not touched on enough. And we've heard about it a little bit in the news off and on for the last couple of years. But I think there's probably a whole litany of reasons why people don't touch on this and talk on this as much as they do. The least, some of which could be, people who are suffering from mental health issues, depression, and other problems. It's not something they really probably want to talk about and share with other people. Maybe they're intimidated or scared to reach out or to share that with other people. And then the people around them, their friends, their family, their loved ones, their coworkers, you know, sometimes we don't understand that they're struggling. And even if we do, we're not quite sure what to do about it. So I'm hoping we can touch on, just scratch the surface on some of those topics today with our guest, Trey Moses. We're going to talk about mental health awareness and I'm really appreciate Trey taking the time to talk to us and share his story and his personal mission the last couple of years to be an advocate for mental health awareness. So let me, without further ado, let me introduce our guest. Our guest, Trey Moses, is a graduate of Ball State University with a degree in child development. He is a four-year player for the Ball State University basketball team. After his career at Ball State last year, he was the all-time leader in games played, second in blocks, and fourth in rebounds. So I think we know he's not a point guard. So then he's also the 2020 Inspiration Award winner. And what that award is, guys, is that is something that's given by the NCAA to a coach or player for someone who has overcome a life-altering situation and then taken that and become a role model and an inspiration to others. And I think you're going to hear why Trey received that award today through his discussion with us. And in addition to mental health advocacy, Trey is also passionate about helping those with intellectual and developmental disabilities. And with the end of the conversation, if we've got a minute, I want to touch on that and do. Trey, thanks so much, bud. How are you doing today?
I'm doing good. How are you?
Man, I'm doing great. Just trying to make it through this COVID world that we're all dealing with, but all is well. My family's healthy and doing well, and I hope the same's with you and your family and friends. Um, folks, if you're watching the show live, a lot of folks watch our show and hear the podcast on a replay version. But if you're watching the show live, please help us by sharing this out. Trey and I want to get this word out and this important topic and talk about this. So please share this out, like, comment. And if you're watching the show live, as we get started here, I'll try to monitor the comments to give any questions or comments or feedback that you may have for us. And then the last thing I'll say is we'll monitor the comments after the show. So if you have a question or comment, you're watching the replay right now, and you want to give some feedback or put a comment in there, let us know, and we'll try to get back to you after the show as well. I guess, Trey, having, gotten a chance to speak to you a couple of times in preparation for today's show and having a chance to watch your Instagram show and do some research and reading, I think at least part of the reason that you're passionate about, mental health awareness is your story. And that this is something that you have personally struggled with. Can you kind of give our audience that may not have heard your story just a snapshot of kind of your struggles with mental health and how that's brought you forward to be an advocate for it?
Yeah, I would say about seventh grade, I really started dealing with mental health issues. I remember just having thoughts of not wanting to be here. Um, and it was one of those things where, I kind of had it all. I was on the basketball team, had great parents or have great parents, great friends, went to one of the better middle schools. So I kind of just didn't understand why I was going through what I was going through. Um, and then um, moving forward onto high school, I really started dealing with self-harming. Um, and it was something that, still not a lot of people didn't know what I was going through. I was just keeping it away from everyone. And um, towards my senior year, I eventually told a couple people, and I ended up going kind of viral on Twitter. So I kind of got like a bigger platform heading into college. And my freshman year of college, I was like, you know, there's got to be other people dealing with what I'm dealing with. And I was kind of started getting into counseling and kind of understanding what I was going through. And I was diagnosed with as severely depressed my freshman year in college. And I really just wanted to, I had this platform that was given by God, and I wanted to be able to use that and use it in a positive way, and not be selfish with it. So I think, trying to use it the best I can was just speaking out on mental health, and having the followers on different platforms and being an athlete. I think um, it really allowed me to be able to speak on things, and then for people to listen and understand that mental health kind of is really important.
Yeah, and listening to you there, one of the things that I take away is that this can affect anybody, and that people can suffer from a condition like depression, even if they have parents and a good background, and they may be popular in school, and I would take it by playing at Ball State and doing that. You're probably a pretty good athlete in high school and one of the better players on your high school team, that even with all those great things going for you, you were still having struggles, and that can happen to anybody, right?
Yeah, I think, I think it's just big with athletes. It's kind of like we're looked at as superheroes, or told to shut up and dribble, and it's like we're people too. Um, we go through things. We have issues at home. We have issues in our heads. We have, we lose friends, whatever it is. Like we're people as well. And I think it's important not only for the world to understand that, but for us to understand that it's okay for us to go through different things, and for us to know that we're allowed to be vulnerable and have feelings.
I think that's so important, because I think a lot of times we instill, maybe it's from an old guard or something, but from coaches and players years ago, we instill in our athletes, whether it's basketball, football, whatever, that they're supposed to be tough and nothing can break them, and they're not supposed to show weakness. That's not what you want to show to your teammates you're competing against for a starting spot, or what you're wanting to show to your competitors and do. And I think that's the wrong message, obviously. And there's a way that you can certainly be competitive and work hard to drive to be the best you can be in your particular field and athletic endeavor. But at the same time, if you've got these struggles, then you need to understand that that's okay, and that there are people there that can help you and do. And I know, for example, my good friend Alicia Kinslow from Philadelphia is joining us watching right now. And, we know as lawyers, Trey, that there are a lot of lawyers that struggle with that, and they don't want to talk about that. And a lot of professions have issues with depression and high suicide rates and things like that. And I think people, not only in sports and various professions, are worried about showing that. And I think you sharing and people hearing from someone like yourself, especially younger people, it's one thing I'm an old head now, in my 40s with gray hair, and my son keeps reminding me my hair gets getting grayer and grayer. But to hear from somebody in their early 20s who's still athletic, who's now hoping to have a professional basketball career, and hey, look, man, I'm out here balling and doing, but I still struggle, and it's okay. And what do you think about that? Do you think that's, you know, I think hearing that from you is really helpful for younger people.
It is, but I think, no offense, but I think it's like not your generation, but kind of the older generation. That's
Mm-hmm.
kind of the tougher, no feelings kind of generation. And I feel like my generation and younger is the one that's starting to speak up more on mental health. And, whether it has to do with social media or just social media allows you to speak up more on it. I think it's one of those things that us younger people are starting to open up more. And because of that, I feel like the older generations are really starting to understand that the younger generations may struggle at times, or are struggling at times. And I mean, I saw it in my own dad, who, at first didn't really understand. And after a while, it kind of hit him that I was struggling. So I feel like I give a lot of props to my generation and younger, as far as speaking up on mental health and just being more vulnerable. But I think as people, we just got to continue to be vulnerable and continue to love each other and be there for each other.
Agree 100%. And recognizing, having others to help recognize things that are going on around them, that there are issues and that people are struggling. And that, one of the things that I know that not only your personal struggles that you went through, but I know that while you were at Ball State, you went through another tragedy, a difficult time that I can't even imagine, losing your best friend and teammate to suicide. Um, Talk about, how, what we do as family, as friends, as teammates, as coworkers. What can we do to look for signs in our friends? What are things that are out there that if we should be aware of from your perspective, either suffering with this and being out in this community and knowing, an advocate for mental health awareness? What are some things that we could be looking for from your perspective to help
I
others?
mean, for me, it's just understanding the people you're around. If they're your so-called friends, I know not everyone's close with their family, but typically you choose your friends. So if you're super close with your friends, it's understanding and noticing different changes in their behavior patterns, and it's not always just jumping the gun and saying, what's wrong with what's going on, but it's just understanding that, if I'm typically a happy go lucky person, I'm always, cheerful and whatever, and then I'm on a stretch of a couple of days where I'm not reaching out, not doing whatever, then then I may reach out and be like, hey, like, what's going on? Are you okay?
Mm.
Or anything you want to talk about? And it's not just always, because there's a lot of, I feel like, another bad thing with social media is a lot of people kind of self-diagnose themselves with depression. And it's one of those things where, you can be just going through a sad time. That doesn't mean you're kind of depressed.
Right.
But it's understanding that, I know you're going to talk about later, but it's okay not to be okay. But just kind of, just being there for people through good times, through bad times. Um, just trying your best to get to know the people around you as best you can,
Mm.
because the more you know them, the more you see those, different changes in behaviors from. So, because I know for me, like when I'm super anxious or super whatever, like I start shaking my legs. So the people that know me most, you know, are able
Right.
to say, like, what's going on or whatever. So it's just, it's the little things in life, and it's the little things with people that that really allow yourself to get closer with people and continue, your friendship, whatever it is.
Well, and I think that's so pertinent that to get to know and to be involved, and then reach out. The one of the good
Hmm.
things about social and or cell phones and all this kind of stuff, you can't see it with my background there, but is it's so easy to text somebody or check in or do so. If you haven't heard from somebody, or like you said, if your friend coworker is out of their routine and it's a prolonged time period, then reach out, check in, and see what's going on. One of the things that when I was doing some reading in preparation for today's show, it seems like while you were at Ball State, that they maybe had put together some type of a team or some people to help you, a system to help you if you were feeling down or having going through some things. Is that something that if you have a friend or a coworker or somebody, a loved one that's suffering through this, is that something that people can do to put together some resources or people that if they're having issues that they can reach out to, and that they don't feel like that's a burden on them, that's what they're there for, kind of thing?
Yeah, I think the biggest thing I was ever told was not everyone needs to know only a few good people.
Hmm.
As much as, I've opened up and talked about my struggles and whatnot, it's always to help other people. But at the same time, like, I don't sit here and tell everything. Um, but the people closest to me are the people that I'm able to open up more to and tell everything to. And um, it's just you personally, like, who are you most comfortable with? And it's understanding that if those people aren't comfortable with, you know, being told that stuff, then you probably shouldn't go to those people for that stuff. We have all
Right.
different types of friends for different types of things. Like,
Right.
I have friends I'm going to work out with, or I have friends I'm going to get closer to within that sense, or I have friends I'm going to play video games with. But then, I'm not going to go. I mean, I kind of have friends in different groups, but just speaking in general, but I'm not going to go tell you know, my depressive episodes to the people I play video games with, because I
Sure.
know that one, they may not want to hear as much as they care about me. They want to play video games, or they're focused or whatever it is. But it's just understanding that, um, it's knowing yourself and knowing your circle, the people around you. I think that's important. And like you mentioned earlier, just speaking out, um, as tough it is, as tough as it is, I think it's super, super important to just be vulnerable and reach out when you're struggling. Not a lot of people will do it, but it could be as simple as that. Hey, I'm not okay today, or hey, I'm going through it today. And as people, when we get that message, not everybody wants your opinion. It's one thing I learned was, um, do you just want to be heard, or do you want my opinion? A lot of people
Right.
just want to be heard. A lot of people go through life and feel like no one's listening. So I think it's important to just allow people to be heard and give them a voice.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think that's true. And a lot of things in life too is that, sometimes people just need an ear and or a shoulder to cry on and someone to listen and they'll let you know and you'll kind of get a sense, if you need to give a lot of feedback or not. But just having that ear, I know the times I've needed to do that, then that's been helpful for me to have someone, like you said, in that really inner circle that you feel like is the best person suited to listen to those types of conversations with you. My friend Alicia had a question for you. She said, that she's a parent and thinking about her son's going off to college and doing, anything you might could suggest that the parents could do to be looking out for kids that maybe are struggling or depressed while they might be away from them. And I know you're not to that stage of being a parent yet, obviously, I don't think, but just, being a college student, maybe being away from home or the things that parents could maybe checking in on their kids or
I
texting
mean, my
them and doing.
biggest, yeah, my biggest advice, which doesn't necessarily have to deal with it, is you got to let go. You got to let your kid just experience college. You got to let them, have that experience. It's a little different with student athletes because, we leave our parents and then kind of go to more structure and college athletics. I would say, especially at a, Division I program, but you got to let go, and not in the sense that you're just completely letting go, but let them make their mistakes, let them oversleep for class, don't get mad at them. Like, you got to let them eventually learn on their own. And that's a big thing that I'm glad I chose Ball State rather than trying to stay at in-state school, is that I was far enough but wasn't too far, and I was able to learn from my mistakes and learn from everything that I went through over my 4 years. And then in terms of mental health, it's um, I talk to my parents every day, or if not every day, every other day, whether it's just random conversation or random text. My dad, I don't know if he's watching or not, but he knows I don't like to always talk to him on the phone. So he'll text me, and we'll text that way, or my mom will call me, and it's just one of those things where it doesn't always need to be like, "How are you doing today?" But just hearing from someone that you care about, just to talk about things that you care about, is sometimes relieving,
Yeah.
especially in college where you're taking anywhere between 12 to 20 credit hours, and you're in different clubs or whatever, different sports and whatnot. I think those two things are kind of the biggest things I would say.
Yeah. Well, I know it can, for any student, it can get overwhelming coming from high school into college and doing, especially if you're away from home and from a little far distance and you're living on campus or off campus, but not at home and those kind of things. And then when you add into the mix of all the rigors of playing, college basketball or whatever sport you might play in college, if you're a student athlete, that just, adds a lot of additional stress and commitments on to you and do. There's no doubt about that. I've been there. It's been many, many years ago, but I remember those days well. Folks, if you're just joining us in this Motion Live, our guest is Trey Moses, the 2020 Inspiration Award winner with the NCAA, and we're talking about mental health awareness. And one of the things you kind of mentioned earlier that I had read in an article about some of your advocacy, Trey, was that you've said before it's okay not to be okay. Talk to us a little bit about what you mean by that.
It was something I always said, and I'm not going to sit here and act like I came up with it, but I don't know who said it first. So I can't give credit as much as I would love to. But I remember like 2 weeks after Zach had passed, and it was like it's kind of hard to explain, but I'm going to do my best. But this organization like goes to different universities, and like you write stuff on whatever body part you want, and kind of it's like giving you a chance to tell your story without talking. And so I knew they were on campus, and I was with my friends like, yo, let's stop by real quick. And we were kind of the last ones there, and I had done the suicide hotline number, and then all you need is happy thoughts, because I'm a big Chance the Rapper fan on my hand. And I was wiping it off after I'd taken my picture, and they have you write in and make you tell your story before you take a picture. And I just got done, and the director comes up to me and was like, yo, what'd you write? And so I kind of just told her my story, and she was like just speechless and just gave me a hug. And she was like, what if this was before I had all the tattoos, but what if she was like, he called 4 times, because Zach had called me 4 times that night, and I was just asleep, and he left 2 voicemails. But it was one of those things where, I took that picture, and then she was like, I don't know if you'd be up for it, but would you mind coming to speak with us tonight? We had because they have students coming after to tell their stories. And she was like, we had everyone booked already, but I think your story's powerful and would really help. And so that was the first time I publicly like told my story. And sitting down, talking with her beforehand and about everything I wrote, I finished with "It's okay not to be okay." And she was like, what if we finish it with "It's okay not to be okay," because that's better than not being here. And so for me, it's always the mindset of, whatever bad day, like today, I spilled water on myself in the car right before my lunch break was over. It's like, that's fine. Like it happens. Stuff happens. We spill stuff. We have bad days. We hit curbs. We miss shots. We have bad plays. Whatever it is, it's like, it's okay. Like it's okay. Like that's it, because that's all better than, letting it truly affect you and letting it ultimately cost you your life. There's a lot of people that care about you, and I'm not one that sits here and is gonna ever guilt people that deal with depression, because I think that's that's truly sad. But it's just understanding as people with mental health issues that it's okay, everything we go through, because at the end of the day, we have people that care about us and people that do love us. And so it's truly just understanding that.
I think that's super powerful and to do. And I think, a lot of times it's hard for us to realize that, because we get so overwhelmed with whatever it is that has got us frustrated or down, and it kind of consumes us. And so I think, just that simple, just very straightforward, hey, it's okay to be okay. It's okay not to be okay. And that kind of thing, that things are going to work out, and the people that care about you. And like you said, you turn to those people in your inner circle. If it's something that's truly needed to be, you need to talk to somebody on about and do that. And, but I think for a lot of us, we get caught up in that and do. And, sometimes for others, for me and probably for you, I'm just imagining, the things that have happened in our life that kind of put things back into perspective and do. And I know with me, and it's not about me, but losing my son was something that keeps things in perspective for me. When bad things happen and do that kind of centers me to think, well, this is not my worst day. I mean, it's not fun. It sucks, but now I'm going to be thinking it's okay not to be okay, but I can move on and do. So I'm really, really appreciate you sharing that. And I think that's a great sentiment for us to keep in mind. I want to kind of, you know, end on another passion of yours that I think is just really cool. As we started out the show talking about you graduated with a degree in child development. And I know that from getting to talk to you a little bit and doing some reading that you're really passionate about working with people with intellectual and developmental disabilities. And I think now working at a daycare and doing, which by the way, I think is a reality show, somebody who is 6'10", working with a bunch of kids in daycare. I need to see some Instagram live stories or something with that, Trey. It's got to be hilarious. I know they think you're a jungle gym. But I know you've worked with done basketball camps with kids with Down syndrome. Where does that passion come from? Where does that burning fire come from to help work with those people?
It all started my sophomore year in high school. There's a kid named Corey Pitzenberger who was like, he's the biggest basketball fan. He knows all the little facts, knew all the high school kids, everything about high school basketball. So I remember him just coming to talk to me in the hallways, and we became friends. And then after that, I joined Unified Basketball, which puts all of us on the court together. I'm on the court. I'm able to pass. I can't rebound, but I can tap it to him and stuff like that. And that's where I met Blake Cummins, who has Down syndrome, and both of those guys are just awesome kids. And well, not kids, but they just both graduated recently. But they're just awesome individuals who mean so much to me. They're like brothers to me. But through that, then I met Ellie Meredith, who I ended up doing peer tutoring with, and which I kind of helped them in the classroom. And for me, I was in PE with them. Those three, I would say, were the three that really started everything for my work with individuals with disabilities. And going into college, I was a special education major, but it was just a little too tough for me. You had to maintain a 3.0 and take tests at the end of each year for Ball State. And I was like, I can't do that. That's a little too tough for me. But I ended up switching to child development and just absolutely loved it. I love being in the classroom with, preschool age kids, 3 to 5. And, that's just another passion of mine, just being around kids and seeing their growth and seeing the funny stuff they have to say every day and their thoughts, and helping them handle their emotions. And I think it's just awesome, especially knowing there's not a lot of Black males in the field.
Right. Well, I can tell from your just your expressions, and I can feel it through our interview that it's something you're passionate about, and you've got a personal connection with that, and I'm glad you are doing that. As we get ready to wrap up, Trey, I know when we talked the other day, I know we're all kind of on edge with everything that's going on in the world today with the coronavirus, and there's a lot of more important things going on than sports, obviously, but I know a lot of us are clamoring for sports and do, and I know that's a big passion of yours. And folks, if you've watched the Mo Show live the last couple of weeks, I promise you I'm not turning into a basketball only themed show. But Trey, my last 3 guests, including you, have been former basketball players in some version or another. You are the tallest, by the way. One of my other guests was 6'6", but and you do have the best beard. But talk to us a little about what's on the horizon. I know you said if things work out with the virus and things get better, then you're trying to look to play some pro ball coming up soon.
Yeah, so I was in Bulgaria for 5 months after I graduated, and then I came home for a month, and I was in Australia for 12 days before all of this happened. So I just recently got the head freshman coaching job at my old high school. And then, so I plan to try to go back to Australia in March. I'm hoping by then everything is good. Obviously, it's still up in the air, but that's kind of my goal, and that's what I'm hoping for. So I'm just grinding out right now and trying to get in the best physical shape that I can.
Well, that sounds great. I certainly wish you the best and do. And I know that that is a real grind. And like I said, having, my last guest last week has been grinding for several years. And, it's finally, kind of breaking through, being an all-star in the G League. And I certainly hope that you have a lot of future success in your basketball career too. And I want to thank you, not only for the least of which for today, but I want to thank you for speaking up and speaking out for others and to help others, to let them know it's okay not to be okay, and that telling your story about your struggles and what you and your friends and teammates went through, losing your good friend Zach, and how that has empowered you to be an advocate for mental health awareness. And do, I mean, as we close, Trey, is there any resources that, in your advocacy that you can point people to or do that may be helpful for someone who's struggling, or for their friends that could help them?
I think one thing I really liked was, I can't remember the exact number, but there's like a suicide hotline that you can literally just text, and they always have someone available. So you're able to just text and talk about what's going on, and at the end you just say I'm done, and then it's closed off. You can't text anymore. But I think it's a good way for people who may not want to go to friends and may want to stay anonymous to be able
Right.
to talk to someone, because in the reality of things, not everyone can afford counseling. Not everyone, especially during times like
Right.
this, not everybody's able to go to counseling. So I think that's probably the biggest one for me.
Yeah. Well, folks, what I'd say, or one of my couple of my takeaways with today's show is to be there for your friends and look out for them. If you notice something's going on, you don't, as Trey said, don't say what's wrong, but just kind of, just be there, pay attention to what's going on. And if you notice a prolonged pattern of going on, just check in with them and see, and see what just be there to support them, tell them you love them, tell them you're thinking about them, those kind of things. Just be uplifting, and be an ear for them if they need an ear to lean on, and shoulder to lean on. Trey, thank you so much for your time today. I wish you the best of luck with your basketball career, and thank you again for stepping up on a really big subject that we need to shed more light on. Thanks so much, everybody. Thank you, Trey.
Yeah, man. Thank you for having me on.
Yes, sir.